A 15-year-old boy has now died from the injuries sustained after being stabbed Saturday afternoon in an altercation at Almond Park in Dunbar, and a teenaged suspect has been charged in connection with the homicide. The victim passed away yesterday afternoon in BC Children's Hospital. He died, sadly, approximately 24 hours after the stabbing occurred in the park. VPD's homicide unit has now taken conduct of the investigation. It's still in the early stages of the investigation. We believe it will go on for some time, and our homicide detectives will continue to gather evidence in support of the investigation. The stabbing occurred just after 1:30 p.m. on Saturday afternoon in Almond Park. That's near Alma Street and West 12th Avenue in Dunbar. What we know is that there were two groups of teens in the park, and there was an altercation between those groups of teens that resulted in the 15-year-old boy being injured. Our officers received a 911 call when this occurred and responded to the park. Upon arriving, our officers set up a perimeter crime scene, taped off the park, identified a number of witnesses and people who we believe were connected to the incident. As you can imagine, it was quite a chaotic scene in the park. The victim, who was stabbed and collapsed in the park, was taken to BC Children's Hospital by ambulance. Did undergo some medical procedures at the hospital, however, sadly did die yesterday afternoon. Our major crime section initially took over the investigation, collected evidence from the scene, as well as from a number of witnesses and other people involved, or other people who had information. Liaised quite extensively with Crown Counsel. Yesterday, one charge was laid against a 14-year-old boy. This 14-year-old boy was arrested nearby shortly after we arrived in the park, and this individual has been charged with one count of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose. This individual can't be named because he is a youth. We're asking anybody with information to contact the Vancouver Police Department's Homicide Unit, 604-717-2500. Anybody with information who was there or who has information about what happened, just give us a call, please. Connect with our investigators and help us move this investigation along. Alternatively, Crime Stoppers can be called with anonymous tips, and the number for that is 1-800-222-8477. Now, I'll just say we have heard from people in the community who live around the park who are concerned about what has happened, nervous about a violent incident like this happening in the park. We want to ensure the community, that neighborhood, that the area is safe. This incident, we believe, involved two groups of people that were known to each other. We do not believe there is an ongoing and imminent risk to anybody else in the community, and I wouldn't hesitate to take my own family out to that park, and anybody who lives in that community, I would encourage to do the same. I understand there's probably going to be quite a few questions. I'll do my best to answer them. As this is an ongoing investigation, and because charges have been laid, there may be some things that I can't answer, but I'll do my best. I'll start with questions in the room, and following that, I will go to the phone line. So if you're on the phone, press *1 to get in the queue. Any questions in the room?
The name of the boy was initially released and then retracted. Can you tell us why?
Yeah. Under the Youth Criminal Justice Act, except in certain circumstances, a youth homicide victim, the name of a youth homicide victim shouldn't be published if the suspect is also a youth. So it is a bit of a gray area there. I understand that The youth victim's name is out in the public. It's been on social media. I understand there is a GoFundMe page, etc. However, it's a bit of a gray area. So out of an abundance of caution, I'm not going to name the youth victim at this point.
The suspect has been charged, but not with any murder charge or anything like that at this point. Is that going on? Do you know?
Yeah, so the investigation is now under the control of the Vancouver Police Department's Homicide Unit. The investigation is at the beginning stages. It's not at the end. We will continue to gather evidence, and we will continue to liaise with Crown. At this point, one charge of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose has been laid. As we continue to gather evidence and understand more about what happened, we'll continue to liaise with Crown. I should mention that the 14-year-old boy who was charged is in custody, and there will be a bail hearing. My understanding is this afternoon.
So any other charges for any of the other individuals?
No.
No. Did you find, we understand that several of the kids ran off. Was everyone who was there identified?
So as I mentioned, it was quite a chaotic scene when our officers arrived. There were a number of people who were involved in the altercation, or who we believe were involved in the altercation, as well as witnesses in the park. Some people had left the park. We are in the process of investigating to make sure that we have spoken to everybody who has information, whether they be people who were involved in the altercation or people who simply saw it or were present. So that's why we're asking anybody else who has any information, anybody who is there, anybody who we haven't spoken to please give us a call, 604-717-2500, and speak to our investigators.
So we understand this was a months-long feud that was going on between these two groups.
Sorry, who's saying that?
A months-long feud? Like this was a feud that was going on between these two groups for quite some time? Did the police or parents or the school, was anyone aware of this? Or was there any intervention that was tried?
I'm sorry, Grace. Are you telling me that witnesses are saying that?
We're hearing that it was.
Oh, you're hearing it. Okay.
That it was a months-long feud, and I just wanted to know, were police or parents or the school aware of this, and was there any any intervention that was tried?
At this point, answering that question could potentially be delving over into evidence that could be given in court. So at this point, I'm not going to speak about any background or any police history regarding these individuals. I appreciate that it's a common question that we get asked when an altercation like this happens, or somebody is killed or arrested for a violent crime. We often get asked, did the person have any police history? Were they known to police? Was there a criminal record? In this case, simply by answering that question, and I know that's, Grace, that's not your intention, but simply by answering that question, there's a potential of possibly identifying these people as either good kids or bad kids. And the bottom line here is these were kids. And these are kids whose lives have been drastically changed forever. In the case of the victim who's now died, this is a teenage boy who's never going to learn to drive, who's never going to go to grad, who's not going to go to college, who's not going to get married. For the young man who's in custody now, his life is forever changed as a result of this. And for everybody else who was there, regardless of their involvement or culpability, are going to forever live with having been part of this incident that ended the life of a young boy. And that's a traumatic experience for anybody. And we need to remember that these are kids.
There was, I understand there was an adult male who performed CPR on the victim. Do you know if that was one of the parents of the individuals there?
I'm sorry, I don't.
And the possession of a weapon, is that a knife? Can you comment?
I can't comment specifically about that, no.
Do you know if the two groups had planned to meet there at the park?
I can't get into that. Those are details that are likely to form part of a court case should this proceed to trial.
Do you know if they attended the same school?
I don't, no.
Martin, do
I don't know why they were in the area, and I'm not going to talk about where they lived or where they went to school or any details like that, just out of a concern that it could possibly identify one of the young people involved. Any other questions in the room? Okay, I can come back to you folks in the room after I take some calls on the line. Star 1 to get in the queue. Go ahead.
Hi, Sergeant. David Mulco at BTV here.
Hi, David.
Yeah, I appreciate that this is a difficult case to discuss because the victim is 15 years old and the suspect here is also a youth and a teenager. I just want to ask you a little bit more. Can you shed any more light? You say two groups had an altercation or a fight. How many people total were involved? Give me a ballpark. Are we talking like 4 people? Are we talking like 12 people?
I'm not going to get into those details, David, for a couple of reasons. One, it's, as I said earlier, this investigation is in its early stages. We are continuing to investigate, and we're speaking with people who were there or people who have information to fully understand exactly what happened. I don't want to get into specifics about how many people were there. I can tell you that there were a number of people in the park, both people who were involved in the altercation as well as people who were witness to the altercation. We're continuing to investigate, and we ask anybody else who is there who may have left or anybody else who has information to give us a call and speak to our investigators.
Do your investigators have a good idea of what happened and why? If you can't shed light specifically on it, do they have an idea and are witnesses by and large cooperating?
Yes, we believe we understand what happened. We have collected information. We have spoken to a number of people. Our major crime section was on this case immediately, has liaised extensively with Crown Counsel, and with the evidence that's been gathered to this point, the evidence does support a criminal charge of 1 count of possession of a weapon for a dangerous purpose.
Steve, who made the 911 call?
I don't know.
Okay. And is there any reason to think that substances or drugs or alcohol or any of those played a factor in this altercation and the outcome?
Again, that's information that I don't have, and it's information that would potentially form part of a criminal case. So it's I can't get into those details.
Okay. Any sense that older children or potentially adults were involved in the altercation at all?
What do you mean by older children, David?
I mean, like, I guess we'd say 17.
Okay.
Or if you want to stick with adults, we could do that.
No. What I can tell you is that there were 2 groups of young people that did have an altercation in the park. I have the age of the victim and the age of the accused, which I've released. I don't have the specific ages of any other youths that were in the park. However, there were other witnesses in the area. Some of them were adults.
Okay. And is there any reason to think that this could be a point taken on the remarks you made addressing concern in the neighborhood? But is there any reason to think this particular altercation could be linked to something broader in terms of, a gang conflict or gang connections, for example?
I don't have any information to suggest that, no.
Okay. Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome. Okay, next person on the phone line. Go ahead.
Recently arrested.
Oh, I'm sorry. The beginning of your question got cut off there. Can you start again, please?
Okay. Yeah. Did VPD arrested the 14 years old in the park, or did he try to escape?
You're asking me if the VPD arrested the 14-year-old in the park. I can tell you that the accused was arrested nearby.
Okay. Does any evidence showing that the arrested teenager may have some mental health issue?
I don't have any information to suggest that.
Okay, I think that's all my questions.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks for calling. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, Sergeant. It's Karen Larson from CBC.
Hi, Karen.
I'm sorry, I haven't been able to hear all the questions, so I just can you address whether there is gang involvement in this incident, please?
I don't have any information to suggest that at this time. What I have said, Karen, if you didn't catch it earlier, we believe that there were two groups of young people who did have an altercation in the park. The investigation is ongoing, and we're continuing to collect evidence. We anticipate that as we do collect evidence in this case, we'll continue to get a clearer picture of exactly what happened, and we're encouraging anybody with information to call us if they haven't already spoken to us, and come and sit down with investigators and tell us what they know.
Right, okay, and so my follow-up question would be, was there a relationship between these two groups of teens previous to was this a random incident, or was there something else going on?
We don't believe this was a random incident. We believe these young people knew each other.
How do they know each other?
I can't get into those details. I can tell you that we believe these young people knew each other. And for that reason, as I said earlier, that we've been hearing some concerns from people who do live in the neighborhood, who are rightfully concerned about such a traumatic incident happening in their neighborhood in a community park. And we want to assure people that the area is safe, the park is safe, there's no ongoing risk to anybody who lives in that neighborhood, and they should feel comfortable going out using that park as they always have.